Good morning. Welcome to the Vicky 3 Academy. I'm Walker. Here we are talking about armed forces on We Play Games. So armed forces and intelligentsia are these two sort of like time agnostic forces that have existed in human history. So we talked about the landowners, the devout, and the rural folk as being sort of just specifically pre-industrial, and so as your society develops you will have less and less of them in your country. But armed forces and intelligentsia, because of the pop types that they pull on, that's not true. So just to reiterate for the people who are new, pops are going to be congregating into these little interest groups. The interest groups are in turn going to influence which laws you can actually pass, and they're going to be deriving this number here, which is clout, from wealth, from the average wealth per politically active pop, and then also from votes in the event that you have voting going on in your society. And then they also get a little bonus from all the characters, and then if there are any laws that give them bonuses. And so those things are going to stack together. They're going to give you a total clout, and then you'll see a proportional distribution of clout over here. So the one thing that's really interesting about both the armed forces and the intelligentsia is that depending on how you develop your economy, you can actually dramatically increase the strength of both of them, or either of them, or neither of them, whatever. You can make a lot of social adjustments on the strength of each of those utilizing taxes. The reason being, for those of you who are, paying attention, here we see the wealth is the source of their political strength. So if you pay them more, obviously they will get more power. But similarly, if you tax everybody else more and then you also give them more, then that's sort of like a double whammy, right? Because it's not just their own wealth, it's their proportion of wealth, which is going to have a big influence on their political power as an interest group. So I hope that explains like a little bit about like the way you can manipulate armed forces and intelligentsia in ways that you can't with everybody else. The only asterisk to this is that government wages can employ some like laborers and whatnot. If you have a bunch of construction, you'll notice that for sure, because you see we have clerks, bureaucrats, laborers, and then those people are going to be paid government wages. So you're paying government wages to laborers. But just as important, if you are in hereditary bureaucrats, then unfortunately your government wages, you are going to have some aristocrats that you have to pay in your government sectors. So that's why I am a big advocate of getting out of those. But let's talk about armed forces briefly as an IG. So these are supposed to represent your military, right? Servicemen, officers, and aristocrats. Aristocrats gradually are going to kind of get buried as you build. They also need to be non-discriminated, and so that means that if you have a bunch of discrimination laws in place, that's going to make your armed forces naturally a little weaker. Whereas if you're a more open society, that's typically going to make your armed forces a little stronger. There aren't a ton of laws that modify strength for armed forces either, so most of what you're going to be getting in terms of the power of your armed forces is just going to be how many barracks do you have built, and how many barracks you have built is largely going to be a function of whether or not you have a professional army or a national militia, or if you switch into a mass conscription later on in the game. Aside from the way that their party is built up, they have some really interesting little bips and bops over here. So anything that gives you a technology cost reduction is going to be really good in multiplayer, and it's going to feel really powerful as a great power as well, because just getting technology cost bonuses are just really, really good. This is a huge bonus, just a gigantic bonus. If you can get these guys up to strong and loyal, 30% offense defense is going to let you mulch your opponents in ways that I can only imagine. But it is going to be kind of tough, especially on 1.0.5, because you're gonna hit probably integer overflow. Material waste is really annoying, but it's a problem that you can get through with a bunch of money. So their ideologies for the armed forces are not nearly as important as they are for like landowners. Personal ideology for landowner on game start matters a lot. For the armed forces, they mostly just kind of support just doing things that make themselves stronger, but the things that make themselves stronger aren't even bad, right? They support leaving land-based taxation, which is going to be really helpful for you. They support or rather they oppose peasant levies, which means that it's going to be easier for them to go into to either mass conscription or professional army, or at least they'll have the good grace to not oppose switching from peasant levies to national militia. They're in favor of colonization. I mean, these are like good things. They like dedicated police force instead of no police, and they like dedicated police instead of local police. So you can actually get a lot of, and that's important to highlight here, you can get a lot of value of having a strong armed forces literally all game. They don't give you any big economic benefit, and so it's going to be hard to necessarily figure out when and how you want to have a strong armed forces instead of, say, a strong industrialists or a strong trade union, or earlier on in the game, maybe a strong intelligentsia or petit bourgeoisie. That ultimately, there's a lot of the armed forces stuff is going to be good throughout the game, but it's not going to be great throughout the game. That said, if you have a good example of when the armed forces were phenomenal, let me know. Just post below. All right, that's Walker. That's Armed Forces.